Hi, welcome. I'm Byron Williams, Senior Minister at Ellettsville Christian Church, and I'm glad that you're joining us for these next 8 weeks. I think this is going to be an important series to help us think about the different relationships that we have in our life, and to think about how we can take the words of Jesus and really inform our relationships, whether with our spouses, with our children, with our parents, with our coworkers, our neighbors, whoever it might be, that we have some kind of relationship with. I believe there is something for us in Jesus' teachings that are very practical. And so we're going to take a look at that. Do you remember the saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, or may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? As children, we were kind of taught that, as kind of a way to give some comfort to us, a retort for us to give us comfort against those verbal slings and arrows of other people. Don't worry if someone's saying mean things to you. Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. But is it true? Is that really true? Words never hurt us? Well, it kind of depends. The unkind words of some people may indeed just kind of bounce off and roll off our backs like water off a duck's back, and just no ill effect. We just don't care. But what about the people that we have a close relationship with? Their words can seem somehow to find the smallest chink in our armor and just really go deep into our souls. If they happen to just say the right thing at the right time, it can just really sink into us and really hurt us, not even just for that moment, but for years to come. Listen to this poem. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can also hurt me. Stones and sticks break only skin, while words are ghosts that haunt me. Slant and curved the word swords fall. It pierces and sticks inside me. Bats and bricks may ache through bones, but words can mortify me. Chances are you have been hurt at some level by someone's words, and that hurt may have left a rift in your relationship with that person, if not crippling it completely. There are things that you may find that something triggers and you can go back a year, a decade or more, and just it all comes rushing back to you. Even if you're still in relationship with that person, there still may be some aspect, some pain that comes in those moments. Broken relationships are not the desire or the design of God. So he puts great value on us creating and maintaining healthy relationships with those around us. In fact, loving our neighbors as ourselves, and our neighbors, that's anybody that we might know, anybody that we might have a relationship with, is the second greatest commandment following loving God. So over the next 8 weeks, we're going to look at what Jesus teaches us about relationships, particularly through his teaching on the Sermon on the Mount. And I believe this is really very practical teaching for us to help us. And if we apply it, and its application is very broad, but if we can narrow it down and just think if we could put these teachings into play, into work in our relationships, what a difference we might see. So let's begin in chapter 5. Now let me just kind of give you a recap. Jesus starts out the Sermon on the Mount by telling us that a blessed person is far different than what the world would say a blessed person is. That blessed people are poor in spirit, that they are those who mourn, those who hunger, those who thirst. He just kind of trips it up upside down. And then he says we're supposed to be a light on a hill. We're supposed to be salt that gives flavor to this world. And then he says, if your righteousness does not surpass that of the scribes and the Pharisees. Here's what he's trying to get us to see, that if we want to consider ourselves a righteous person, if we want to consider ourselves doing things right, we have to go deeper than that which we have heard. And particularly his audience would have heard the 10 Commandments. And so Jesus takes these and he does something with them. So he begins this in verse 21. It says, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder. And anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Rakah, is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Now, it's important to know that Jesus is going to take many of the 10 Commandments, which are often external and action-oriented, and then turn them inside out and show us that what goes on in our hearts and in our minds is equally important. So he begins with the commandment against murder. Did you know that in 2020, less than 1% of the United States population committed murder? So if you were using whether or not you committed murder to determine if you were a righteous person or not, I think it's pretty likely you could say, no, I've never murdered anyone. Count me among the righteous. But notice that Jesus doesn't leave it at physical murder. He goes deeper. He goes after our anger, particularly our angry words. We might be tempted to say something like, guns and knives may wound and even kill, but my words do no harm. So as long as I don't hurt you physically, I can rant and rave and curse and demean you all I want, and God doesn't care. But Jesus is telling us that God does care. How we speak to one another, particularly in times of conflict, matters deeply to God. Why? Because we are made in his image. To assault our neighbors, employees, our employers, our spouses, our children, to assault them with words is to assault God himself. When we understand this, we can understand why so many marriages struggle, why so many adults carry the wounds from words they heard as children. Because those words wounded deeply and damaged relationships, and people still carrying them around. They are still ghosts that haunt them. So if you want to heal and enhance your relationship, whatever relationship that might be that right now needs some attention, what you need to do is to watch your words. You need to watch your words. Think about it. Be mindful of what you say and how you say it. Let me give you 3 things to help you out here. Here's some questions to ask. First off, before you say something, ask, will this lift up the person or tear them down? Will this lift them up or tear them down? We often think that biblical commands are about big, important global issues. And sometimes they are, but often they're just about people getting along. Paul wrote to the Ephesian church who had kind of 2 different groups in it, the Jews and Gentiles, and they were struggling to kind of get along as one body. And he said, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Think for a moment about the last few things you said to your family, to your spouse, to your children, to your parents. Did your words build them up, or did they tear them down? Did your words bite, or did they offer healing? Did they provide a healing ointment, a balm? We really need to ask ourselves, before we say it, we've got to get in that habit and that practice. Before we say it, is this going to help them? Is this going to strengthen them? Is this going to encourage them? Or is this just going to tear them down? Make me feel better in the moment to vent my anger, my frustration, but is it really going to help in the long run? So do I lift up or am I tearing down? Second thing to think about is that we need to be aware of making accusations. It's not that we cannot say hard things that need to be discussed. Resolving conflicts in a healthy way actually strengthens relationships. So it's not that we're supposed to ignore the stuff that may be troubling us or bothering us. It's how we're going to talk about them. It's often how we say what it is that we need to say. So watch out for the adjectives you use or declarative sentences that exaggerate with words like always or never. You always do this. You never do that. These words box people in and they put them on the defensive. And they don't help at all. It is totally appropriate to share how someone's actions or words affected you. But we need to avoid saying we know why they acted or said what they did. We're not mind readers, and it can be very difficult to know what actually was going on in somebody's thinking, what their motivations were. This is the judging that Jesus said we need to avoid. Finally, the third little tip here is to tend to your tone. It's funny how a tone can impact the meaning behind the same words. Think about the two words, it's you, how you might say them. You can say them, you see somebody and you're surprised, it's you. Or you can tell somebody something, that they've won, it's you, you've won. Or you might say, what are you doing here? It's you. Same words, but the tone, the inflection, how we say them can make a big difference in how they are heard. And the important thing is we need to understand that communication requires not just what we say, but how we're heard. And we want to make sure that what we intend to say, what we meant to get out there, is what actually is understood, what is taken in. Tending to our tone takes a lot of awareness and a lot of effort. It can be hard to change our tone if we've developed a habit. But if it helps us resolve a conflict in a healthy manner, if having a good tone keeps from creating conflicts, that's a good thing. The Bible is clear. We can and must speak the truth. But we must always do so in love. And love builds up, doesn't tear down. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love doesn't seek its own. So we need to make sure that we're speaking the truth in love. We're bringing those aspects of love to bear. Over the next few minutes, you'll have some time to discuss with your group what it would look like to put these words of Jesus into practice with the words that you use. My prayer, my hope is in this series that you'll be vulnerable, you'll be open to this and learn from one another and to allow your group time to help you see how you can watch your words and how you can do better with your words so that you're not tearing down but lifting up, so that you're not accusing but you're trying to help and enlighten, so that you're not using a tone that hurts rather than heals. Thank you for being a part of this study. Let me say a prayer for you, and then we'll turn it over to your group leader. Father, I thank you right now for this group. May they find this discussion time helpful. May they be encouraged and blessed by digging into your word and thinking about the words they use in their relationships and how they can use their words better. And I pray this now in Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, folks.